Shalom, I'm Dr. Deanna Dye with Foundations in Torah. We're going to talk about the wedding at Cana in John chapter 2. And so it tells us on the third day, there was a wedding in Cana, which is in the Galilee, and Yeshua's mother was there. Yeshua and his disciples were also among those called to the wedding. The big question in this were, who was the bride and who was the groom? This is sort of left unknown. It talks about when you go from John chapter 1 into John chapter 2, it says 2 days later or on the third day, which actually completes a 7-day picture. Chapter 1 takes us through 4 days, and then we come into John chapter 2. We have 3 more days. So it's the 7th day, it's a Shabbat, it's a picture of the wedding in the future. It's a time of the bride and the groom coming together, but the question is, where are they and what does this mean? Of course, we know there were 7 purification jars of water that were turned into wine by Yeshua. I believe that has a connection between the time of Passover, the time of purification, the Berachat Chametz, getting the leaven out of the house, and leading us to the time of the grape harvest at Sukkot. And so his turning the water into wine is taking us from Passover to Sukkot. And so the Sukkot speaking of the time of judgment, the time of Passover speaking of the time of purification by the water, or getting the leaven out. And so when we go to the root word for Cana, we find that it is the word ken, which is a kuf and a nun, and that means to acquire or to be zealous or jealous. It also means parent birds who gather materials in order to build a nest. So technically, it's actually a bird's nest. Also, the parents would protect the nest and the eggs from predators. And in addition, the idea of acquiring someone through a purchase. Now, Rabbi Hirsch tells us each soul builds its own nest in the house of the Lord and is assigned to each individual his own special task of purification, devotion, and upward striving in accordance with the particular nature of his personality. The song of the bird expresses the yearning of each soul for its nest, its place and purpose in the house of God. So one of the idioms for the house of the temple is the nest, the bird's nest, in which the Shekhinah or the Shekinah would return to. So I believe that this picture of the wedding at Cana is a picture of the temple, of the marriage in the future between the bride and the groom at the temple. It says the temple is to serve as a spiritual nest for all humankind. The mountain of the temple of the Compassionate One will be firmly established as the head of the mountains, and it will be exalted above the hills, and all the nations will stream to it. So this idea of Cana is to be zealous or jealous, speaking of the marriage at the temple in the future, the time appointed by God, possibly related to the period of Sukkot, actually going back to Rosh Hashanah, which is a picture of them entering into the chuppah, Yom Kippur, the consummation of the marriage, and Sukkot being the wedding supper. And the temple is a pattern after a body, after a male and a female. And if we follow up in that chapter, we find that Yeshua is performing Berachat Chametz, or getting the leaven out, or getting that which is corrupted out of the temple, when he says, "Zeal for my Father's house consumes me." That word zeal is the same as Cana. So right in that chapter, we have it as used as a double. The wedding at Cana and zeal for my Father's house consumes me. And I believe, again, as a picture of the temple. And of course, Yeshua is driving out the money changers and cleaning out the house in the ceremony of the Berachat Chametz, or cleaning out the leaven. So he's cleaning that out in order for the Shekhinah, the bird, the dove, to return back to the nest. And the bird can return the nest and make Israel whole. Thank you. Shalom.
Bible Interact is a group of Bible scholars and biblical archaeologists who promote the Hebraic nature of Scripture and view the two Testaments as one unified message. They explain how they use a first-century approach to searching the Scriptures, and they share their methods and discoveries for discussion and dialogue. They invite your comments and participation on BibleInteract.tv.